A leading Pakistani cleric in Britain has issued a religious ruling condemning terrorism. Dr Muhammad Tahir-ul-Qadri heaped scorn on the notion of religious rewards for suicide bombers. Instead, he warned suicide bombers that they're destined for hell. In London, Rachel Brown reports.
Dr Muhammad Tahir-ul-Qadri's 600-page religious ruling, or Fatwa, says suicide bombings and attacks on civilian targets are condemned by Islam and render the perpetrators unbelievers. He says there are no circumstances in which suicide bombings can be justified.
No person in the whole world can provide a single evidence from Quran who would create any exceptional permissibility for committing suicide bombings.
Dr Qadri runs a Sufi movement based in Lahore, but he says he wanted to spread his message to the UK and the wider Western world.
So that the whole world may know that whatever the terrorists are doing, they have no link with Islam. And I wanted to give this message to the youth in Western world also, that these kind of activities will lead them to hellfire, and they are not involved in any kind of a martyrdom operation. Rather, they are doing an act which is an act of disbelief.
Dr Qadri hopes his message will come in time for those on the fringes of extremism who he says have been brainwashed. He says Western youth, whether they be of Pakistani, Indian or Arabic Islamic backgrounds, are being victimised and misguided on the concepts of Islam.
You go on internet and you will find the extremist people and the terrorist people are running uncountable websites giving the wrong concepts of jihad, wrong concepts of suicide bombing, giving the fatwas in favour of suicide bombing, creating some exemptions for them, and this is how they are being brainwashed. In America, you know, the basic thing in 9/11 took place, and in England 7/7. And the England and UK is the country most concerned.
But Azam Tamimi from the Institute of Islamic Political Thought thinks this fatwa will fall on deaf ears. Mr Tamimi thinks suicide bombings are permissible under the Quran as a form of self-defence. He says he sees no difference between a suicide bomber and an F-16 pilot who drops bombs on innocent people. But Mr Tamimi says the real issue is of utility.
Whether this is actually good for the cause or bad for the cause. And in most cases, it's not good for the cause. And I think this is the argument we need to push forward rather than resorting to fatwas, because for every fatwa, there is a counter-fatwa.
And he says many young people aren't interested in fatwas and are confused about how to attract attention to their cause.
British young Muslims, I would advise them against resorting to any of these tactics because they are counterproductive. But I cannot apply the same thing for people who are defending their country and defending their homes, and for people whose families have been wiped out completely by coward pilots flying F-16s and Apache helicopters.
But the counter-extremism think tank, the Quilliam Foundation, says Dr Qadri's fatwa is the most comprehensive theological refutation of Islamic terrorism to date.